To another story we've been following very closely for you. Diplomatic tensions between China and Canada remains top of mind in Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau ruled out exchanging Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou in the return for the release of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. But he says efforts to get the Canadians home will continue. I'm now joined by Peter Humphrey. Peter is China analyst with decades of experience in the country and who also spent 2 years of arbitrary detention in Chinese prisons on charges of illegal information gathering. Great to have you on the program. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
I want to get your thoughts on what you're seeing here in Canada right now, how you feel the country, the government is handling the situation regarding Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor.
Well, I think it's a real struggle for the Canadian government. I mean, we've seen this week comments from China, both from the embassy in your country and from the foreign ministry in Beijing, which very explicitly and publicly have linked the two cases. And they basically have made it a precondition that the Meng Wanzhou extradition process be suspended in order to create space for negotiating the release of the two Michaels. So this is now like a confession to the crime of hostage and ransom. And if Canada were to suspend the extradition case, this would be nothing short of abandoning Canada's rule of law and judicial process. So I believe Mr. Trudeau must now stand very firm and must be seeking support from his allies.
Do you think there is a chance, a strong chance, that they will be released considering the scenario they're in right now?
Well, I think that China's declarations over the past couple of weeks, have made it clear that China now is declaring it to be a political case. When you slap espionage charges on somebody, it's a political case. This is very clear. So I think what China is expecting is some kind of behind-the-scenes negotiations, low noise volume, and some kind of arrangement where Meng is let go. I think they completely misunderstand that for Canada, this is a rule of law issue. And I think when you look at the contrasts in the way each side has handled the respective cases, that lack of understanding for the rule of law is very, very clear. Beijing's handling is barbaric. The Michaels have had barely any access to family, lawyers and consular officials, no medical access, no proper food, no fresh air, no outdoor exercise, none of the normal conditions that are required under United Nations treaties on the treatment of prisoners and on torture. And they've not been seen in public.
No.
And the Chinese government is making prejudicial statements which prejudge any trial outcome. And these two guys have no right of response. That's such a contrast. Miss Meng has had all the comforts of home, free access to all her family members, a massive team of lawyers, her Huawei colleagues, her embassy, her government, her human dignity and human rights have been fully respected right under the public gaze. And she's been able to issue public statements. This is a massive contrast.
And
Peter, you can see which country has the rule of law and which one doesn't.
Yeah, and Peter, you've been through all of this, having to been in detention for 2 years. Give us a sense of that experience for you and under what terms were you eventually released? I
frankly have to say that I don't think I suffered as much as these two guys are suffering right now, but I had a pretty strong taste of it. Basically, you are raided, you are arrested, you are thrown in a cell in the middle of the night, and you're cut off from communication with anybody you know, whether it's your consuls or your family. All communication is severed. And in this case, no lawyers. It took quite a long time for me to get a lawyer too. And you're in a very confined space. Usually there's no furniture. You sleep on a floor, you sit on the floor, you eat on the floor, you go to the toilet in a hole in the floor in the corner of the cell and so forth. It is absolutely disgraceful conditions which in no way conform with international standards laid down in United Nations treaties. And you don't get any fresh air, you don't get any sunshine, your health deteriorates. It's a real struggle. And the isolation is terrible. I mean, especially when they do things like not letting you have reading material or not letting you have the right to correspondence. Anybody in those conditions is going to deteriorate rapidly, both physically and mentally. So it's a great tragedy for these two innocent men.
Yeah, it really is. And we really appreciate you giving us your time today to give us your perspective. Peter Humphrey, thank you so much for this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.